But let's go ahead and let's jump onto our 103 of the draft class, Coach, which is Drake Maye going to the Patriots. Um, has a solid year. Obviously, he didn't start the first 5 games, played a little bit in game 3, but week 6 he took over and he's quarterback 25 on the season. He's played pretty well. Looking at his stats, he's got just under 1,700 passing yards, 11 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and he's been a little bit sneaky athletic, rushing the ball with 345 yards on the ground, adding a touchdown there. So, Coach, how are you feeling about the young quarterback out of North Carolina?
Yeah, he's played really well. At times, he's really looked like a prototypical NFL quarterback. He does run the ball at a fairly high rate. He's a really underrated athlete. Um, I mean, his family has. I mean, these guys can play. Drake Maye was also a really good high school basketball player in North Carolina. People don't realize that. I mean, this guy's a good athlete.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, like, I'm concerned about the playmakers around him. I'm a little concerned about what's going to happen in the future offensively in New England around him. I mean, that would be the one thing that would concern me a little bit if I'm a Drake Maye owner moving forward is what is New England going to do to help him, give him more pieces to work with on offense?
Yeah, and I think they're going to have to make some type of investment there. They've got Ramondre in the rushing game. I think Ramondre is just an okay running back. I don't think he moves the needle towards anything special. The pass catchers is where he's hurting. He needs some help on the outside to kind of alleviate some of that pressure. And I expect New England to make some sort of move to address that issue. But right now he's been connecting a lot with Hunter Henry. We'll see how that goes going forward. But a quarterback like that, it's got to be at least a little bit concerning that he's in a division with Josh Allen. So like this team is going to have to make a lot of moves to compete. And obviously you've got Miami there too with Tua and Tyreek, Waddle, the speed show. They've kind of been caught here recently, and they're not producing like a lot of people thought they would. So, the division is going to be interesting to monitor going forward. But as far as it goes for dynasty value, Coach, is Drake Maye a buy or is he a sell for you? What are you doing?
Yeah, he's totally a buy for me. If I'm rebuilding, he's a guy I might try to go get because I think I could get to him a lot easier than I could get to Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, or Caleb Williams. I think I could get to Drake Maye a lot easier. So that's what would make him a buy for me. Especially if there's a team that's contending and I'm holding a guy like Tua, then I would be willing to say, all right, here, you want Tua, let me have Drake Maye or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Somebody with that kind of level of talent that would probably going to help that contender win. But at the same time, Drake Maye's going to help me win in the future, I believe. I mean, his QBR is
Yeah.
87. He's played solid as an overall quarterback. So I like the upside of Drake Maye.
Yeah, I like it too. I think I'm in the same boat as you. I'd be buying if I could. I mean, he's currently QB 11 over on Keep Trade Cut. And if, you do exactly what you just said, and, you're rebuilding and you could take a guy like Tua, maybe Jared Goff or Baker Mayfield, names like that, where you could get a little bit younger and you could, possibly net something. It's all going to depend. I realize those quarterbacks are behind on Keep Trade Cut, but right now people are paying to win championships. So you can
Mm-hmm.
take advantage of that and, maybe get a little bit more on top. But as far as it goes for the season, he's played well. I mean, he's not blown anybody away, but he just doesn't really have much to work with. Um, we'll see what happens with coaching if Mayo gets to keep the job. I know we've talked a little bit about that amongst ourselves. I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen, but coaches kind of alluded of what happens if they get a replacement. But is Drake May someone that you envision if he got a little bit of help on the outside could be a playmaker forward and kind of pushing this team towards the playoffs?
Man, I really do. And I think it will help too if New England gets more of an offensive mindset as a whole. It just seems like they really are committed to let's just play defense and run the ball. Some of that's due to their talent, and I totally understand that aspect of it. But I think Drake Maye, if you give him a bona fide stud out there at wide receiver and an effective tight end and running game, like Drake May's going to be a really good player in the league for a long time. So, I mean, he's definitely a guy I'm going to go get if I can get him.
Okay. Now, let me ask you a question because we're kind of hitting the point of where these other quarterbacks that we're going to talk about here in a minute are coming into play. Would you rather have Drake May or Bo Nix?
I'd rather have Bo Nix. I mean, the future to me seems clearer with Bo Nix and his situation with Sean Payton and what's going on there in Denver. That's the only aspect. Like Drake May looks as good to me physically and stuff as Bo Nix, but I'm just not real sure what things are going to look like in New England next year. Whereas I know even if Denver does nothing, Bo Nix is still going to be super productive for me next year.
Yeah. And that's a situation where if you move Drake May for Bo Nix, you're going to get a plus. So I
Yeah.
would take advantage of that if you could. Certainly something to
Mhm.
think about. Now, I think I know your answer to the next question. Would you entertain J.J. McCarthy or Michael Penix for Drake May?
I would not unless I got a serious plus with him, only because of the unknown. Like Drake May has looked like he can get the job done. I just don't really know about the other two guys, so it makes it scarier. But I mean, there's a world where if I'm the Drake May owner and my team is not great, that I would say, okay, I'm gonna roll the dice on this. I'll trade Drake May for Penix and a plus. You know, can I get Penix and a running back for Drake May? Then maybe I would, or McCarthy and a running back or something for Drake May. Then I would.
Yeah, there's a lot of risk with those two names, so you kind of got
Mhm.
to know what you're getting into because what's going to happen with Sam Darnold? I don't know. Are they going to stick with Kirk Cousins there in Atlanta? That's a whole nother issue that we're going to have to work through and
Mhm.
kind of really dissect this offseason because I think a lot of it is just going to depend. And we'll talk about more on each of those quarterbacks when we get to them. We can go through their situations, but I'll end it here, Coach, with another question for you. When we're talking about Drake May's dynasty value, does he fall back into that same category of I want a good amount of first round picks and one of them needs to be impactful?
Absolutely. I mean, that's you got to have multiple firsts, and one of them needs to be a guy I know for sure. I got to know I can get something good for.
Yeah,
I would pose a question back to you:
sure.
Drake May or Anthony Richardson?
Drake May, easily for me. I know Richardson's looked a lot better in the last 2 weeks, and
Hmm.
I commend him for that. I think he's played his two best games of the season in the last 2 weeks.
Hmm.
But for me, I think that Drake May is more stable and he's going to be given more time. I mean, we've already seen Anthony Richardson miss games due to health, and we've seen him miss games due to benching. And I'm
Yeah.
not entirely sure, but I would imagine that Drake May and Anthony Richardson have a similar total amount of games played in their career. I can't
Hmm.
imagine it's much different. I'll look that up real quick. Drake
Well,
May
this
has
season they
appeared
both played 9, I believe.
exactly. There you go. They've both played 9 games, and
Hmm.
Drake May didn't start the year, so I think that it's a little bit safer. I'd rather have him just because I'm still not sold that Richardson can put it all together. I mean, the end of that game last week for the Colts, they still didn't quite trust him, but we don't have to get too much into Richardson. Where do you fall
Right.
on that, Coach?
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. Like Drake May's upside has been higher. I mean, it, it's hard to believe, but I mean, Drake May's just QBR, just overall quarterback rating, it's like 23 points higher, and they've played